Hello, what is poppin' YouTube fam? This is your boy J Money here, and I'm bringing you guys a first place deck profile from yesterday. This is once again going to be Infernoble night, but it's going to be a lot more twist than the last deck profile. I've been playing this deck for forever, and granted, I haven't really been showcasing too much all the behind the scenes type of stuff that's been going on the channel, but I have been working on this deck very diligently. So enough of the talk, let's go ahead and get on to the profile, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Alrighty, YouTube fam, starting off with this profile, we of course still are playing our 3 Neospace Connector and our Neospace Aqua Dolphin. These are not going anywhere, let's be honest. As long as hand traps exist, as long as hand knowledge is extremely good in this game, these cards are not going anywhere. So yeah, we are on 1-0 here for our 4th normal summon, and we are on Battling Boxer Uppercutter for our 5th normal summon. Now typically Infernoble list is supposed to play 6, but I think 5 is pretty good. It's still pretty decent. You can still consistently access everything you need fairly consistently with all the search cards that are that you have available to this deck. Now this is a 50 card list as well. I need to, you know, just kind of put that out there. So I know a lot of Infernoble players want to hover more towards like between 40 and 44, but you know, I do have an added engine in here that bumps this up to 50, that makes this deck a lot more flexible, and it's still very consistent and can still run a decent number of non-engine as well. So Battling Boxer Spar, I will access these 2 cards every single game, right? Just these 2 cards open up way more play lines than this deck should probably be able to access, right? The sheer flexibility that these 2 cards add is huge, right? And I think about it this way, right? Instead of just 3 OGers, I mean, this is a better standalone normal summon anyway, you know, regardless, right? This by itself is full combo. I'll summon this off of Isolde a lot, or Isolde, however you want to call it, and just the sheer amount of resources just this card by itself generates is very, very insane. It's a level 4 Fire Warrior, so you can interact with Ricardetto and all that. It's amazing. So we're gonna go and use we have 2 Renauds now. I think we were on 1 last time, but I think, you know, I moved it up to 3, and then when I put in the some other cards, I realized that this doesn't really need to be a 3. You do want to consistently see it, but I want 2, right? I want 1 for combo, and then 1 to search off of his soul for the follow-up for the opponent's turn, in case I have a Rotten and I summon that Renaud to add a equip spell. And meanwhile, the other Renaud got shuffled, so I can access that the following turn and get me yet another card. Just it being able to turn itself into a tuner is good. It being able to retrieve that Battling Boxer Spar is very, very good as well. 1 Ricardetto, this card is used a hell of a lot more now. The effect to summon, not only just to summon from grave, but oftentimes you, in certain situations, you want to send this to grave with Ogier and then banish it from grave, and essentially acts as a Fire Flint Lady without actually having Fire Flint Lady in your hand. And you know, you can use this to summon Battling Boxer Uppercutter from your hand and do all kinds of cool stuff that way. And so for other 1-0s, we got 1 Turpin, 1 Magius. Turpin's effect to equip to turn the warrior into a tuner monster is incredibly valuable for a lot of reasons, and I'll show you in the next video with a few combo tutorials. You know, but for example, equipping Aqua Dolphin with this and synchroing with the DFL Star into a Baron and such, or equipping Red Layer with Turpin and turning it into a tuner and using that in a level 4 to make an instant Charles. There's all kinds of applications that you can use with that Turpin. And then we got 1 Magius for our last Infernoble Night monster. And we have our Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. Time and time again, I have debated on whether or not I want to see this card every single hand or whether I just rather access it. Every time I go second, I want to see this card, but sometimes it's like I don't even... A lot of times I've broken boards without even seeing this card. So, I mean, it depends on what you value, right? It depends on what's in the format. If there's a lot of nib, if you probably want to see more of this. If there's a lot of troll, you probably want to see more. So yeah. And then for our 2 extenders, we have 1 red layer and 1 flint lady. You want to diversify your extenders because a lot of extension now is about it's like once per turn extension. So yeah. And that is it for our nice Fire Warrior engine based stuff. So now we're gonna go on to some of the more useful engines that complement this deck. Of course, we're playing the Sinful Spoils package. It is very, very valuable. Being able to go one-hit on draw phase is very, very good, and it plays around draw very nicely. So there's that, and of course we got our 1 DFL star and our 1 Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, and we are playing the Horus package. We got 3 Imsetis. We're missing 2 QCRs of the Imsetis, and we have a Dumatif and a Happy. So this engine has consistently been performing non-stop, right? You would look at a deck like Infernoble, especially when you have cards like Ricardetto and potentially Museum that like to warrior lock you, and you would think that this engine is very weird. But this engine is actually a very, very nice fit for a few reasons. And again, in the next video, I will showcase, you know, all the little micro interactions this deck has with a lot of the other support, and as to how it actually kind of fits more naturally, like a puzzle, almost. And like, there's all kinds of stories here I got. So, King Sarcophagus, that is the card that you need to turn your Horus engine online. Now, spell cards, we got Rhoda, of course, 3 Heritages, of course, no debating these. Some people play 2, but again, I do want to ensure that I can combo every time, and I want to ensure that like I can trade very well with my opponent's interactions. So like if I open like multiple Heritages and I got like Barons and stuff I got to deal with, Baron can negate 1, or I can get like 1 Ashed or something, and then I can just activate like, let's say, Museum and whatnot. Like, you want to see like a combination of different search cards, you know what I mean? So you want to maximize your chance of seeing them at the same time. 3 Museum, again, I know some players are on 2, but if you're playing the Sinful Spoils package, you want to see this, you want a free send. Now for the equipped spells, we are playing 2 Durandal. Not 3, but 2. You really don't want to see this card all that much. And if you do see one, then you just rather foolish the other. You're gonna shuffle one with Magius anyway and access it again. So you don't really need the third. 1 Almace, 1 Joyous, 1 Phoenix Blade, 1 DDR, and 1 Angel Ring. Angel Ring has consistently proven to be a much welcome addition to this deck, especially when people are playing things like Forbidden Droplet and they try to activate a spell and you attempt to Charlemagne negate and then they chain Droplet and you just let that go and the Angel's Ring just stops it, or they stop a Super Poly, because I stopped that too. Angel Ring is insane. Like I said before, like stopping spell speed force is one of this deck's biggest problems, and Angel Ring deals with that very nicely. And we got 1 Call by the Grave because we still want to stop our opponent's hand traps. Alright, now we're on to some non-engine. We are on 1 Ash, 1 Droll, 1 Imperm, 1 Nib, and 1 Book of Eclipse. We were diversifying our non-engine because for the longest time, we were main decking crossouts. And honestly, with these new engines, like, I'm not really too scared of Droll as much anymore, because of how things like, let's say, the Horus engine can play into Droll very well. and stuff like that. And again, with the next video, I will show you guys what I'm talking about in regards to how Horus Engine interacts with a lot of different like boards and a lot of different like interactions and interruptions and stuff like that. So, but I am still on these 5, but instead of the crossouts in the main, I opted for Forbidden Droplets in the main and put the crossouts in the side deck. These droplets have overperformed for the past couple of weeks. Again, Horus Engine with this in hand will break almost any board because you will just blank your opponent's interactions, summon your Horus cards, run everything over, and make your combo. And you essentially just win from there. So going second, this card is nice, but it's also good going first too. I mean, if you're getting interrupted a lot, like if you do get drolled by your opponent, which I have been drolled quite a few times, and you can't set up like the biggest board, you can set up like 1 or 2 Charlemagnes and like 1 Gearfried, and just set Droplet right and equip all of these equip cards from the graveyard, so you have fodder that you can send for Droplet in case you need to blank multiple cards. And also Droplet is also good going second as well if your opponent is letting things go because they're trying, let's say their interactions are limited, right? Let's say they're playing against like Vanquished Soul and they only got like a couple heavy interactions that act as like spot removal and stuff like that. The more you play, the more you put like Infernobles in the grave that you can then use to equip, so when your opponent does want to start interacting with you, you can use this and just send the equips from the spell and trap zone and just blank stuff. So that is it for that. We're on to the extra deck now. Of course, we're going to be on our Baron. We are playing our 1 copy of Angelica, 1 copy of Roland, 1 copy of Charles. And of course, the Charles turns into Charlemagne's. This card is, this with Angelica are like the main driving forces of the deck now. Isolde is really good, is still a very good card, but these 2 cards, man, like these Charlemagnes, they put in work. They put in hella work. And then of course, you know, what are these Charlemagnes without our pair of Isoldes? You know, of course we're still gonna play those. Rotten, it's very good follow-up. It is also, if you're playing against a deck that is about resource management, like let's say, what's it called, like Vanquished Soul, or other decks that like to set a bunch of cards, you want cards that, additional cards that can pop cards, right? And again, this card gives you follow-up because when you search Renaud with this sold and it stays in your hand, you summon this, the Renaud to one of his zones on the opponent's standby phase and add like a DDR. And we're gonna go Appaloosa, and a nice addition to this deck being SP Little Knight. I will have a QCR next week. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But this card being a warrior monster is very, very nice for when you are playing under a warrior lock. This card also outs things like Tikaboo and all that stuff when you use a Link monster or an XC, Synchro, like whatever. So it is very, very strong in that matter. We're gonna go and Battle Boxer King Dempsey. I go into this every single game. If I can play, I'm going into it. Artorias. This card is still very useful when it comes to time because of one of the cards I side for time. This card also, if you're playing under Droll and Lockbird, this card comes up, right? Because you'll foolish all of your Noble Arms cards at that point, you know, and then you'll make your Artorias, equip them all, right? Then you'll use the Reborn effect of Durandal, you'll use the add back effect with Almace, and then you'll use the add back effect with, what's it called, with Joyous and whatnot. Also, this card also pops back row. I did that yesterday as well. And for the 2 cards to complement the Horus package, we have Photon Lord and Coach King Giant Trainer. Guess what type both of these are? They're warriors. Insane, right? I love it. This is a fire warrior too, so it's like you can just drop Renaud down, if you have nothing else. Like dead ass, like there's been so many times where I've used a Horus engine and I dropped my hand down to like one card, but kept the Renaud and made Giant Trainer, and in case it got like impermed, I could still just drop the Renaud and add like, let's say, a Battling Boxer, or because like, okay, when I discard for Sarcophagus, let's say I have search cards, I'll activate like the Rotas and the Heritages and stuff, and search cards that are good in the graveyard, right? I'll search like Turpin and things like that I can use. So yeah, these cards overperformed, and again, this is a nice time card as well. So, but you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you go into this. So forewarning for those that are thinking about this, if you summon your Horus monsters and you go into your battle phase to out stuff, you cannot activate this effect. Do not do it, that's cheating. Alright, side deck time. Alright, this going first cards first. So we're gonna go, like I said, Crossout Designator was in the main, but it did get relegated to the side because if I know for a fact I'm going first, my opponent is likely to side more hand traps. If they try to side board breakers, it doesn't really matter because of Angel Ring, unless one of those board breakers is like Kurikara or something like that, because I have gotten my shit Kurikara before, and that was not fun. And we got Gravity Collapse. We have 3. This is a turn skip. It's a counter trap for those of you who don't know. If your opponent attempts to summon a monster, including normal summon, send a face-up synchro. You control the graveyard, negate that summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. And your opponent cannot summon any monsters for the rest of the turn. So that useless Angelica that comes back in the end phase is perfect fodder to essentially pass your opponent's turn. I wish it was a normal trap, but it's, you know, of course it's a negate, so it's not, so you can't really thrust for it, but yeah. Noble Arms Caliber. Guys, let me tell you, again, this deck is at a huge disadvantage when it comes to time because of Noble Arms Museum, the risk of missing a card with Aqua Dolphin and Self-Burn for 500. This card has single-handedly took me from getting draws to getting wins. This is the difference, right? Because so many different tournaments, when I wasn't siding like a card like this, I was always going into draws, right? I would go into like 1 or 2 draws a tournament, right? And it's just like, Jesus Christ, I hate the fact that I burn for 12. And then it's just like, there's decks, like you'll make your board and you'll think like 5 minutes is enough time for your opponent to like scoop, but your opponent will be playing some stuff that has a lot of interactions, and they'll purposely play into your board to run down that clock. And before you know it, time's up. Even though they knew they weren't winning, they just want to just play for the sake of playing, so they can win because I paid 12, right? This card, you can resolve this 3 times if you're trying to play in the time. Against that Vanquish Soul player, he burned me for 1500 with that board guy. I not only had to play through his dragon guy that pops cards, he had like Tikaboo set and all that. I had the lightning sword for that, of course, but he had like Ash and stuff too. Like he had the book, you know, well the book was gone because I had lightning sword, but he had like another interaction too. And I managed to not only play through that, but burn him 1 time with Dolphin and then resolve this 3 times. You know, so I gained, you know, I gained 15 and dealt him 5 to where I still managed to win that game. And time, we were in the middle of time and I was just comboing for like another 5 minutes to try and pull that off. And I managed to do just that. Alright, so the next, those are the going first cards, and that's the time card. And 2 Spellbounds for those that want to play IP Masquerena into Little Knight, and for Pearly players as well. You know, I also have things like, you know, first I was playing like XYZ Encore for like, I kept it in for like Dweller and Pearly, but Droplet is honestly kind of just as effective at stopping things like Dweller, and also stops other things as well. Spellbound is still really good because, you know, like I said, Pearly, Masquerena, and also Flu is annoying. It stops Brandon and Reds and stuff like that. It just stops like these weird things that just want to summon stuff on the opponent's turn. So yeah, I don't really side it going first. You don't need to. And we got Lightning Storms, Feather Duster. So these cards have overperformed, especially if you know your opponent is on a deck that can play Tikaboo. Even if you don't know if they're on it, side these cards in anyway. You don't need to lose to Tikaboo. So next we got Thrust, because I only own one Thrust. I will try to get 2 more, but in the meantime we got Talents and we have Change of Heart. These cards are really good for messing with our opponent's interactions, and these allow us to play under Tikaboo a little bit better as well. You know, again, we could use Thrust to grab Lightning Storm or grab Feather Duster to out the Tikaboo as well. So yeah, that's the deck. Alright guys, hopefully that gave you guys some pretty good insight as to why I performed relatively well over the past couple to a few weeks with this particular build. Post of God really breathed. It gave this deck much needed flexibility and resiliency, and that's if you choose to play and go with these options or not. You know, the choice is up to you at the end of the day, but you know, let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below, and I would love to have a discussion down there. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is J Money, and I am signing out.